United States. When we got to the American consulate, they listened to our story patiently and politely, but said, Mrs. Hubert, we've listened to the same story from hundreds and hundreds of other Jewish women whose husband had been arrested. I wish I could help you, but there's nothing I can do. What do you mean there's nothing you can do? Can't we get papers to go to the States? Can't you get my husband out of concentration camp? You don't understand. America has an immigration policy that is very strict. It has a quota system. The quota for 1938 has been filled. For 1939 has been filled. For 1940 has been filled. If you want to put your name on the waiting list for 1941, we can't wait 3 years. It's a matter of life and death. My husband's in Dachau, don't you understand? He came home absolutely frustrated into this broken down house. This is now November, bitter cold. Scared of what was happening to my dad, scared what was happening to us. We didn't hear about or from my dad for days, for weeks. And then one morning, early in the morning, it was still black, dark outside. There was a knock on the broken front door. And I went down and a voice said, "Open up, let me in." And I opened the door and there stood a man I didn't recognize. It was my father who had come back after 5 weeks in the concentration camp, full of frostbites and other signs of mistreatment. And of course we took him in and tried to bring him back to some semblance of physical and mental health. He would not talk about Dachau, wouldn't talk about it. The only thing he said, I did not escape. I was released officially. Don't worry. I'm not in trouble. I was released. We don't know why. Maybe, just maybe, the American consulate did help. But we think it was mainly because my dad was in the German army. He was drafted into the German army and fought in the First World War. He was a decorated war hero, wounded on front. And maybe that gave him some preferential treatment. But now, we only had 2 weeks left before we were thrown out of the village. So my dad got on the phone and made contact with the very few relatives that were still left. And one distant cousin in Augsburg was good enough to offer us a room. So on the very last day of our ultimatum, on December 31, 1938, my father, my mother, my sister who had then come back from Nuremberg, and I left Kronheim early in the morning, and not one person came out to say goodbye or to wish us good luck. And my father's family had been in Kronheim for almost 300 years going back. We lived in this one room in Augsburg. We slept, we ate, we cooked in this one room, and we were grateful to have a roof over our head. But we lived in fear every moment of every day that the Nazis would come and arrest my dad again, or break in, or God knows what they would do with us. They were absolutely free to do anything with us they wanted. Meanwhile, my dad tried desperately to get us to emigrate anywhere. Kept trying America, Switzerland, Holland, England, anywhere. No country would open its doors. No country would take us in. It looked desperate. And Hitler was fomenting a war. He He was making claims. He already had Austria annexed. He got the Sudetenland annexed, and he was now making claims for Danzig and Poland, and it looked like if we can't escape now, we are doomed. It was a horrible, horrible time. And then one day a letter arrived from England, and it said, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Hubert, we are pleased to tell you that you may send a child to England on the kinder transport. We can't tell you when that child will leave or where that child will live, but if you agree, have that child ready immediately." And my parents wanted to keep the family together at all costs, but it looked so hopeless that they finally said, well, maybe let's just save the children. If that's all we can do, let's save the children. Here's an opportunity. And then they read the letter again, and they saw it said, you may send a child. My parents had 2 children. Which of their 2 children were they going to save, and which child would have to stay behind? I'm a father and a grandfather. If I had to make such a choice today, I don't think I could make it. It is an impossible decision for a parent to make. But it had to be made. And I remember sitting around the kitchen table that night, my father, my mother, my sister, and I, discussing it. And the first thing my parents told us, look, we love you equally. No one child is loved more than the other. Believe us. We have to make a choice. And they tried to apply reason, and they came up with the following reasoning. My sister was 3 years older than I, and they thought that if she went to England, she stood a better chance of helping me than get out. In other words, helping to convince people in England to let me come out, than if I, a 13-year-old boy, were to go. And that made sense. And we all discussed it, and we all agreed, yes, it should be my sister. And I agreed. I thought that was the right thing to do, even if I had to stay back, taking that one chance. And within days, my sister was gone to England on this kinder transport. Now, kinder transport is the German word for children's transport, and it came about after Kristallnacht, when the rest of the world just ignored what happened. People in England said, look, we can't take German and Austrian Jews into our country. There's a depression. They would take jobs away from others. Besides, there are political issues, there are anti-Semitic issues. Let's at least try to save the children. They're not going to take anyone's job. So they passed a law which said, England will allow Jewish children from Germany and Austria to enter England, providing A, the children will come separately, not part of the whole family. Number 2, there will be no older than 16. And number 3, that there will be a guarantee in England of 75 pounds, of 50 pounds per child, so that if anything happened, that child would not fall reward to the state. 50 pounds then was worth about $75. The price of a Jewish child was $75 a head.